clinical differentiation, if you see that the wound is not deteriorating, you're just growing bacteria, but you're not getting any abscesses, you're not getting any discharge, and the patient is afebrile, then you don't need to give antibiotics. In fact, very often we grow so many organisms, but we are not giving antibiotics in our unit because we feel that it's just a colonization of the wound, but not actual invasive infection. It's for diabetic foot, but I think you can apply it to all other neuropathic ulcers. Only difference is in other neuropathic ulcers you don't end up with gangrene so fast. So I don't think 4 and 5 will come in. But it is for diabetic feet ulcers only.
Ma'am, how the Doppler study will help the assessment of the level of amputation?
No, it won't help the assessment in the level of amputation. It will just tell you where there is a blockade. So in case you have a blockade in the, say for example, you have a blockade in the peroneal vessels or the posterior, or you have a blockade in the, say, runoff from the popliteal, then you can do a femoropopliteal bypass. That means from the femoral you take a bypass graft and give it to the posterior tibial or the anterior tibial vessels, because as you know, only one vessel is enough to perfuse the whole limb. When we lift up 3 fibulas and all, we take off the whole peroneal vessel. And that is when we do a Doppler and see that, the anterior tibial and posterior tibial are enough to supply the limb. So similarly, in these cases, if you can give one graft from the femoral artery, maybe which is healthy, to a distal popliteal artery beyond the block, that is where the Doppler comes into, to tell you the level of blockade and whether it is amenable to a bypass graft.
Is there any clinical finding or inspection by anything by which we can expect that the ulcer will heal of its own with rest without doing anything active, with dressing at the rest, like the pressure sores in chronic pain?
Yeah, see, in pressure sores what happens, they heal when the patient becomes ambulatory. If you can't make the patient ambulatory, your pressure sores never going to heal. What happens in paraplegics? But in these patients what happens is, that is why offloading is done. That means you're trying to give that part rest, you are preventing the body weight from passing through the metatarsal heads and or the heel. And that is where your offloading works. So offloading with dressings may allow the ulcer to heal. But when they're very superficial, Wagner grade 1, as I told you, Wagner grade 1, 0 to 2.
Can we consider that neurovascular compromise is not so much that it may heal by rest? Is there any way?
That's what I said. If the ulcer is 0 to 2, then you're expecting that it may heal on its own.
Grade 0 to 3 or 2 or 3, we have to go for some conservative management. So, process explain करेंगे मैंने कैसे क्या करना है, जैसे class infection होता है, collagenase क्या होता है.
Actually, main thing क्या है, you have to offload. You have to give a contact casting. If you don't do that, whatever you use, it will never heal because the body weight is passing through that ulcer. But if you give a offloading and then you give this thing, main thing is keep the environment moist. Now to create a moist environment, the first thing which started was a Vaseline gauze or a Sofra Tuli. And what happens is Sofra Tuli, often if you do the dressings yourself and you remove the dressing, you will see that as early as 24 hours it has dried up. So then the later generation dressings came out like these hydrocolloids and these alginates, which actually keep releasing, the main thing is their main content is water. They keep releasing water with antibiotics to the wound. And their advantage is that they can be kept for as long as 48 hours. It's not always possible to do the dressing of these patients on a daily basis. So if you have something which can keep the environment moist for 48 hours, then these dressings are good. Then the third concept came up of, because these areas may have poor perfusion, you don't have a good blood supply, IV antibiotics may not reach that area. So the best thing was to give a local antibiotic. And then you have a host of local antibiotics, out of which soframycin now is, I think, it doesn't, most of the organisms are resistant to it. So for burns we are using silver sulfadiazine because silver ions have a high antimicrobial, microbicidal property, And the MIC of most bacteria, including Pseudomonas, are killed at the levels of which silver ions are available in the womb. But again, the same problem with silver sulfadiazine is that it is active only for around 8 to 10 hours. So in an ideal world, you would like to dress the patient twice daily to keep the silver ion concentration, which is not possible. Then this thing came up, this nanocrystalline silvers, which are small ions, and they have the action for about 72 hours. Because they act for so long, you can dress these patients after 3 days. And they are supposed to keep the silver ion level at above the MIC for 3 days. And as for your question about Placentrix and all, nowadays Placentrix was just a raw extract of the placenta. That is now almost obsolete. So what has come up now is, the growth factors. You have many growth factors which are available as either gels or as solutions, and they are supposed to increase the epithelialization of the womb. But it's not available here. I have no experience with the growth factors. We have just done few dressings with the samples provided, but it's not available with us.
Madam, just one comment related to infection, wound infection. And just day before, just 2-3 days before, in Lancet, again, one report is published that's showing there is one severe dangerous strain. They have labeled named as a New Delhi strain.
That's the Delhi bug, which is actually growing. It's a kind of it's an extended spectrum beta-lactamase. Earlier they used to cause AMC, beta-lactamases and metalloproteinases. This is one of the further varieties which is resistant to everything, even to carbapenems and to
They are leading imaprenum resistance, and finally they have concluded with this. They don't send the patients to the India. That's why there are a huge hue and cry over these articles, and so many against hazard petition has been filed by the Indian government, ICMR, and I don't know how much it is true or what.
No, the strain has been detected. There is no doubt about that. It has been grown 6 months back, and because it's grown only in India. It was named as the Delhi bug. But the problem is that the Western world doesn't have problems with ESBLs. They have more problems with MRSs, and we are the people who are facing ESBL problems. In our hospital itself, we are getting carbapenem resistance. We have got lots of patients who are resistant to meropenems. We are getting carbapenem resistance because I think of the rapid, I don't know, maybe the indiscriminate use of carbapenems or the bacteria mutating. So difficult to say.
When we are getting the diabetic patients regarding the foot care, the diabetes footwear should be advised.
Yeah, the first thing is that please tell them to wear soft shoes, never to walk bare feet, which is a very common problem in India because they always walk bare feet at home, and if not home, outside, of course the laborers and all, they are all walking, so barefoot walking is banned. The second thing is always to wear a shoe with a very broad front, never to wear a narrow pointed shoe. And the shoe should have, first of all, in the anterior end of the shoe also, you should have at least 2 centimeters gap between the tip of your toes and the front of the shoe. And the other thing to be very careful about is that they are hammer toes. That means the toe is like this. And if this part is also not high enough, this is going to rub against the shoe and create an ulcer here.
Are there any specific places where they can get such flat shoes?
Yeah, that is a problem. I think Central Leather Research Institute is doing some work on this. They had come out with some cheap shoes for Indians, especially leprosy. But here, they are available, but in Calcutta there is one Calcutta orthopedic, I think shop. I don't know what its name exactly is. It's on just next to Lady Dufferin. They manufacture good shoes because some of my patients go there and get it made. And what I tell them is those who can afford is if you can buy a Dr. Scholl's sandal, that is the best to.
Just related to this, most of the ladies, diabetics who come, their housewives, they are prone to wearing sandals, often very cheap, hard soled ones, and the sole is often fissured, very much fissured. What kind of advice preventive advice should be given?
The main thing is give them a soft sole. If you can give a soft sole, and most of them, even the patients who come with corns, that is the main cause. And somehow they are not willing to invest in a pair of shoes, how much ever you tell them.
Regarding the corn and the fisher part, any
And the other thing, main thing is moisturize. Keep the food moisturized. And I advise coconut oil is the cheapest moisturizer. So at least massage your food daily. So that, I mean, if you massage, you're increasing the circulation, you're looking at your food, and then you notice if there's some small, and the main thing is that if you get any small infection, even maybe an ingrowing toenail or a small, cut, immediately start antibiotics and go to your doctor.